The Murdoch empire might just be hurtling towards collapse after an insane succession trial and a shocking interview with one of Rupert Murdoch's sons shed light on all the drama, paranoia, and animosity that lies at the core of the world's most powerful media family. Things could get very messy. It's been a rough week for 90-something-year-old media mogul and real-life Tywin Lannister Rupert Murdoch. Two astounding stories have been published in both the New York Times and the Atlantic, which basically proved to the world that HBO's Succession was low-key a documentary. These stories came off the back of a secretive trial involving the fate of the Murdoch family trust. His four oldest children were set to inherit the family firm, News Corp. But just after turning 90, Rupert had tried to cut three of his children out of their inheritance and hand the business over to its favorite and coincidentally most right-wing son. The kids sued and won, and although this trial took place in secret, the family fallout has been anything but. So join me as we engage in our real-life dystopian Game of Thrones-ass succession situation. What the heck is really going on with the Murdochs, and what happens now? Let's get to know our main characters a bit. The Murdochs. Sorry. Rupert Murdoch, the patriarch, played by Brian Cox, is an Australian-born media mogul worth over $20 billion. Through his company News Corp, he controls hundreds of publishing outlets and TV stations worldwide, maybe most notably Fox News. His influence over global media and politics is terrifying, and his reach is vast. I mean, back in 2000, he owned 800 companies in 50 countries. Like, imagine the damage he's been able to do since then. Mr. Murdoch has faced various allegations over the years, from the infamous phone hacking scandal to bribery. He's been investigated for corruption and bribery by both the FBI and the British government. Many of his papers and channels have been accused of bias and misleading coverage. Rupert's right-wing policies have evolved, especially as he nears 100 freaking years old. In 2023, he stepped down as Fox and News Corp chairman in favor of his son Lachlan, but we will get to that. No spoilers for Succession. Rupert has been married 4 times and has 6 children, but we're going to focus on the eldest 4. Prudence MacLeod is the eldest of the siblings at 67 years old. She is the only daughter of Patricia Booker, Rupert's first wife. She hasn't been deeply involved in the family business. She served as a non-executive director for the Times newspapers, and she founded the Murdoch Foundation, which funds projects focused around improving our environment, the health of communities, funding more carbon-neutral ways to farm food and livestock, and mitigate the effects of climate change. Also, a non-executive director, by the way, is essentially a person who sits at the table and provides an outside perspective to help the board make decisions. They generally won't have any other links within the company outside of sitting on the board. So it's a solid Nepo baby gig. It's a good Nepo baby job. Prudence has distanced herself from Rupert's politics and media empire. In interviews, she's spoken about feeling out of place in the family. She told The Guardian, "They have massive boats, all of them. I never feel sophisticated enough to be on this big boat. They're all taller than me. That's the worst thing. So they all look chicer wherever they are, but especially on a boat, where everyone is in shorts or a swimsuit and I'm the short, fat one." Girl, been there, Prudence. But as you can imagine, her politics are wildly different from her father's, and they haven't had the best relationship. I mean, at one point he even said, "my 3 kids," referring to the other siblings. Ugh. But the next eldest child is Elisabeth Murdoch, who's 56, one of 3 children Rupert had with his second wife, Anna Murdoch Mann. Elisabeth is the Shiv Roy. She is Shiv, played by the incomparable Sarah Snook, and next in line for succession. She was a non-executive chairperson of Shine Group, a UK-based TV production company that she founded in 2001 until 2015, when the company's parent, 21st Century Fox, owned by her dad, merged its Shine Group division with Apollo Global Management's Endemol and Core Media production houses to specialize in reality TV. In 2019, Elisabeth set up Sister Pictures, the company behind HBO's Chernobyl, and funnily enough, at one point had a deal with Jeremy Strong, who plays Kendall Roy in Succession. Crazy, eh? So to throw that in. Though once considered a contender for her father's empire, she dropped out in 2012, claiming no ambition for the top job. Elisabeth is known to again be more left-leaning in her politics than her father, but she is far more engaged in the family business side of things than her older half-sister Prudence, and has benefited probably a lot more from it. She likes to go by Liz, and like a lot of the media you'll see about her really paints her as an art-loving feminist who struck out on her own, and that she disapproves of a lot of what her father and siblings do. And I wouldn't go as far to say that any of that is untrue, but Liz is a talented PR thinker, so also just consider that this may be how she wants to be viewed. This next bit though, I think is important because I do think these two tidbits really show the conflicting nature of Liz's personality. In 2019, Rupert sold assets to Disney. This is a really big thing, by the way, and I'm going to mention it heaps. And this deal gave Liz and her siblings $2 billion each. Meanwhile, she announced plans to fund a London school to tackle nepotism after profiting from it herself. Slay, Liz. Moving down the line to the male siblings, next up is Lachlan, the current heir. He's got a real severe vibe, so he's obviously the Kendall Roy, played by Jeremy Strong. He's known to be right-wing as hell, and I mean, like, just look at him. I don't know what it is, but he just looks so right-wing. Like, not in a mean way, not in like a judgy way, but like, what is that? As the oldest son, he was kind of always seen as the natural successor to Rupert's empire. But in 2005, he left the company after getting into beef with then boss of Fox News, Roger Ailes. He set up an Australian investment firm, poured some money into a range of media and marketing companies, including 10 network holdings. But not all of these were successful, and 10 eventually went into voluntary receivership after Lachlan and his fellow shareholder Bruce Gordon declined to extend the company's credit line. They then attempted to sell that company to his father Rupert, but literally no one there wanted that, and 10 was sold to the CBS Corporation. This meant that Lachlan lost his entire investment into the network. And in 2014, he came right back to his father's empire and was named CEO of Fox Corp after the Disney acquisition. Although Rupert was still hoping to allegedly continue an active role in the company. So yes, his obedient right-wing son gets named heir, but clearly he's also the kid who is gonna let Rupert run the show behind the scenes and do what his daddy tells him. This is where things start to get really juicy. In 2022, Lachlan and his father wanted to merge News Corp and Fox Corp, but his brother James's opposition, along with some other major stakeholders, meant the proposition was sunk the following year. Speaking of James, let's meet the youngest son in the running to be successor. James is totally Roman Roy, by the way, played by Kieran Culkin. He's sort of seen like the loose unit of the siblings, like the rebel. He briefly worked for the Sydney Daily Mirror as a teenager and later launched independent hip-hop label Raucous Records, which he eventually would sell to his father's company. He did go to Harvard, but unlike his siblings, he didn't graduate. Selling his record label to his dad wouldn't be the only time James had some nepotism to back him up. He's been chairman of various huge media organizations around the world, all owned by his father. In June 2015, Rupert announces he's leaving his position as CEO of 20th Century Fox, and that James would be taking over the position. But only a few years later, the Disney deal would see James' tenure as CEO end and Lachlan step right on in. So yes, James worked very hard like a good boy. He went all around the world on the instruction of his father. He served as CEO, and then his older brother, who had already gacked and lost a bunch of money in another country, just swoops in and wins the game. Girl, I'd be pissed too. I'd be really pissed. But politics and rivalry come into this in a massive way. And now that we know all the main characters, let's discuss what's happening now and what went down with the Murdoch trust trial. The family have been embroiled in a private legal battle for the last 18 months. And it's all about who will take over the reins of the dynasty after Rupert Murdoch dies. Which, like, again, this dude is almost 100 fucking years old. So, like, not to be dark, but time is of the essence. This is not just a family squabble. This is a trial to determine who will control the most powerful conservative media force on earth, one that has literally toppled governments, and depending who you ask, delivered Donald Trump to the White House. The four elder siblings were originally set to inherit the family firm, but just after Rupert's 90th birthday, he tried to cut Prudence, Liz, and James out of their inheritance and hand everything over to Lachlan, his favorite son, who just happens to share his right-wing views. One of the sadder details that was revealed here is that the plan was dubbed by Lachlan and Rupert as Project Family Harmony, as in, there will be harmony when we kick all you liberals out. The three less favoured kids sued, and in December, a Nevada commissioner ruled in their favour, accusing Rupert and Lachlan of acting in bad faith. Yeah, I can see how that would happen. The trial was mostly secret and completely kept from the public. But a New York Times investigation and James going rogue and giving a 13,000-word interview to The Atlantic has shed light on the inner workings of the situation, and it's actually, really dark. In James's interview, he reveals that his father pit him and his brother against each other their entire lives, and that his sisters were never real contenders for succession, as according to James, his father is a misogynist. Rupert believed that if he were to not take aggressive action and make amendments to his will, James and his sisters would plot to seize control of the family companies as soon as he passed, thus destroying the conservative media network he had spent his life building. And he wasn't totally wrong, honestly. Rupert was definitely becoming more paranoid in his old age, because again, he's almost 100, but James had come to see Fox as a blight on his family name, as well as a menace to democracy. And he felt huge changes needed to be made to save the company and the world from his father's reckless mismanagement, saying, "If lying to your audience is how you juice ratings, a good culture wouldn't do that." So the stakes are already set pretty high, eh? But it was also heavy with personal drama and upset. Depositions would surface years and years of family secrets, manipulations, and betrayals. James and his father had hardly spoken in years, and James had to sit and read all the things his father had said about him and how he talked about him to the rest of the family, revealing just how cold, calculated, and manipulative he could really be. When a packet of documents James's lawyer had requested arrived from Rupert, it included a handwritten note which said, "Dear James, still time to talk? Love, Dad. P.S. Would love to see my grandchildren one day." James, unable to recall the last time Rupert had ever shown any interest in his grandchildren, decided not to respond. During the trial, and remember for a lot of this, they have to just be in the same room, Rupert's attorney described James and his sisters as, quote, white privileged multi-billionaire trust fund babies, which is true, but insane to hear that from your father's lawyer. Rupert made them that way. Apparently, Rupert was slouched and silent during the trial, but was texting his lawyer telling him questions to ask James like, "Have you ever done anything successful on your own? Why were you too busy to say happy birthday to your father when he turned 90? Does it strike you that, in your account, everything that goes wrong is always somebody else's fault? How fucking twisted is that?" James would say. It gets worse too. There was a key rule in the Murdoch family. Don't talk to reporters. James shared that he hated the books and articles written by professionals about himself and his family, calling it the canon. He would find out during the trial that many of the insidious stories about himself and his wife had been planted by Rupert's camp, his own father. James also revealed that some of the business decisions that looked like nepotism were actually something slightly different and way more twisted. In reference to Liz selling Shine to her father, James was against it. He felt like she had turned Shine into a success all on her own, and there was no need to let their father get his claws into it. He said, "My father was always trying to pull everyone into the company so that he could manipulate them against each other." In fact, Rupert loved manipulating these kids so much that he would often send them to fire each other or deliver bad news rather than do it himself. What a great parent. So it is kind of miraculous in a way that three of them were able to band together, rise above the noise of being in the room with somebody like Rupert Murdoch, and try and reclaim some power. When the siblings were talked through the details of the proposed inheritance amendments, Liz texted Lachlan and pleaded with him not to go through with it, to which he responded, "Today is about Dad's wishes. It shouldn't be difficult or controversial. Love you." Damn, Lachlan, you really okay to watch the world burn and democracy destroyed just so your daddy says you're the best? Get a job, get a grip. Anyway, the court ruled in the siblings' favor, but Rupert and Lachlan say they will appeal the decision. It's honestly not likely that they'll win the second time around, but what now? What is the fate of the biggest media empire on earth? Who gets to win succession? things actually remain the same. Much to Rupert Murdoch's dismay, and no matter how much money or power he has, he will die, and control of his empire will be split among the 4 siblings. He will leave behind a warring family, a conservative media empire, and a checkered legacy. The inheritance thingy itself dissolves in 2030, so Rupert is probably hoping to live to 99 so that those grubby liberals can't get their hands on his right-wing king-making machine. Rupert's worst nightmare, his empire falling into the hands of lefties, may just come to pass, especially if James and his sisters can remain united, but like can they do that? If we take away all the money and the companies and the jets and the boats, these are children who were purposely raised to be in combat with each other. Is it possible they'll be able to get along well enough and long enough to make changes to News Corp once they have the reins? Although the Murdochs are totally fascinating, it's not like we haven't heard the story before. A powerful family torn apart by rivalry and an ice-cold king. James said it best. It's all been written down many, many times, he said. The real tragedy is that no one in my family doing this bothered to pay attention. Thanks for watching, everybody. I just want to say that Atlantic article is an absolutely incredible read. I have to give it up to journalist McKay Coppins. It's so good. If this video sparks your interest at all, I implore you to read the full thing. It's really long. Okay, it's really long, but it's very detailed, and it's like it just paints this like totally vivid picture of this crazy family and their dynamic. It's so good. Also, one thing I really wanted to include, but I just could not find anywhere it was relevant, but it's like fully insane and I'm obsessed with it, is that Lachlan, aka Kendall Roy, is so Kendall, and he's actually like kind of weird and crazy in real life. So like apparently they were on this yacht once, on this boat, and he got a fight with like his girlfriend, like a fight broke out. So he shaved off all his hair and swam back to shore. Girl, Kendall, don't do it. You've got so much to live for. Kendall, get out of the water. Anyway, we do 5 videos a week on everything happening around the internet. I love getting into stuff. Whatever's going on, I'll figure it out for you. See you tomorrow.